Chapter 4 of Battle for the Stars by Edmond Hamilton. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Battle for the Stars. Chapter 4. The squadron was out of overdrive, cruising at normal approach velocity. There was a sun ahead in space. Compared to the blazing giants of deep space, it was not much, merely a small yellow star looking rather lonely in the midst of a great emptiness. Kirk studied it. The sun. Not just any sun, the sun. How should he feel about it? Like a child seeing its father for the first time, or like a man returning to an ancient hearth that has long ago lost any meaning for him? Kirk searched his heart, and nothing came. It was only another star. Garstang touched his arm and pointed to where far off a little green planet swung to meet them. Earth. The squadron rushed toward it, the cruisers and supply ships and transports, the men and women and children, strangers from the far reaches of the galaxy. And yet not quite strangers either, for the names that had come from this world were still among them, and the traditions, and even some of the blood. 200 years ago their forefathers had left it, and now they were coming back. A quiet had settled on the bridge. Kirk supposed it was the same with the whole squadron, everybody staring and thinking his or her own thoughts. He wondered what Lillian was thinking, and wished she were with him instead of back there in one of the transports. Earth came closer. He could see clouds, and the white splash of a polar cap. Closer still, and there were seas, and the outlines of continents. Colors began to show more clearly, and the land became ridged with mountain chains. Great lakes took form, and dark green areas of forest and winding rivers. A nice world, a pretty world. Kirk hated it. Its other name was trouble. Why did Ferdius have to pick us for this job? Unconsciously, he had spoken aloud, or loud enough for Garstang to hear. "It's only for a visit," said Garstang. "Just a celebration. What's wrong with that?" His tone was mild, without mockery. But Kirk looked at him sharply. He knew that Garstang and Larned and all his other officers and men must have been talking and wondering why they'd been pulled out of their needful place for this rather meaningless celebration. They came down past the shoreline of a blue-green ocean, past a city that sprawled over islands and peninsulas and up inland river valleys, and then beneath them was a big spaceport. The squadron roared into its appointed landing, bristling on its best behavior, every ship set down with masterly precision, and there was a crowd assembled there to meet it. Flags whipped in the wind. The brassy music of a band blared out, immensely stirring with a solemn throb of drums beneath it. The men of the Fifth debarked and formed in marching order, every boot polished and every uniform immaculate, a solid line of blue and silver glittering in the soft blaze of this golden sun. Kirk felt the heat of it on his face. His heels struck solidly on the ground, and the wind touched him balmily, laden with fragrances strange to him. And he thought, "This is Earth." He looked around at it. He could see only the spaceport, and that was old and worn and poor. The tarmac was cracked and blackened, the ancient buildings weathered. Opposite the squadron were drawn up 12 cruisers with the old insignia of the Galactic Navy on their bows, and with their crews standing at attention in front of them. Those old, small ships. Why, they were Class 14s, obsolete for years. He supposed they were all Earth had. 2 men walked toward him. One was a middle-aged civilian, the other an arrow-straight, elderly man in black uniform that also bore the old Navy insignia. He stiffly returned Kirk's salute. "Nice landing, Commander," he said. "I'm First Admiral Laney, and I welcome your squadron." Incredulously, Kirk realized that the old admiral was keeping up the pretense that the Fifth Squadron was still part of the Navy. It was so preposterous it was funny. Not for a century had the old Galactic Navy had any real existence. Its staff never sent any orders out to the squadrons of the 5 governors, any more than Central Council dared send orders to the governors themselves. Yet this old Earth officer was trying hard, in front of the crowd, to act as though he really were Kirk's superior officer. Then, seeing the faintly desperate look in Laney's eyes, Kirk softened. After all, what difference did it make? It was only a pretense, and he felt sorry for the old chap trying to play his part. He saluted again and said, "5th Squadron, Kirk commanding, reporting for orders, sir." A look of grateful relief crossed Laney's face. He said uncertainly, "At ease, Commander. Let me present Council Chairman John Charteris." Charteris, a graying, eager, anxious man, shook hands warmly. He began a little speech into the telecameras close by. "We welcome back one of the gallant squadrons of the Galactic Navy to take part in our commemoration of—" When the speeches and handshaking and band-playing were over, Kirk gave an order, and his men broke ranks. Larned came up to him. "Shall we debark our people now?" The old admiral told Kirk, "Quarters are all ready for them." Charteris said, "But you and your wife, Commander, must be my guests." They walked back between the lofty looming ships. The women and children and babies of the men of the 5th started coming out of the transports, and efficient Earth officers began smoothly shuttling them into cars to take them to their quarters. From around the fences, a big crowd of Earth folk watched interestedly. Of a sudden, for the first time, his men's family seemed a little outlandish to Kirk. The women and children were of so many different star peoples, so many different ways of speech and dress. He looked resentfully for amusement in the Earth faces, but could not detect any. At the transport, he excused himself and went into Lillian's cabin. He stopped short when he saw her. He had never seen her like this. She wore an Earth-style dress of impeccable lines, was perfect in a smart, sophisticated way. She still didn't look like an Earth woman, not with that skin and eyes and hair, but she looked stunning, and he said so. "I'm glad I look civilized enough for your people," Lillian said sweetly. "My people?" Kirk drew back stiffly. "So, you're still brooding on that? That's fine. I'm not in a tough enough spot here. My wife has to get super sensitive and make it tougher." Lillian's expression changed. "What kind of spot?" He was silent. She looked at him steadily. "It's something dangerous, isn't it?" "I'd have told you if it was something I could tell you," he said. "You know that. Will you forget it? And forget about these people being my people." He went out with her, and Lillian went through the introductions, cool and proud. Kirk told Larned aside, 2 days leaves for all personnel in regular rotation. Port facilities will take care of refitting and fueling. Larned grunted. "I've seen better facilities on 5th-rate planets. Plenty old. But we'll make out." Charteris' car swept them along a broad highway to New York. It had a stiff, strange look to Kirk, its vertical towers huddled together bold and black against the setting sun. He thought it a cramped and crowded place, though Charteris' terrace apartment high above the myriad lights was pleasant. There was a dinner there that night, and drinks, and more speeches, and much talk about the commemoration. Sector politics were unobtrusively avoided. Kirk fretted and worried through it all. What was Solarimus doing? Where were his squadrons? Ferdius had said he'd get warning if they moved, but would that warning come in time? In the morning he found Charteris oddly changed. He looked at Kirk with a queerly doubtful expression. Kirk said, "Before we make arrangements about the commemoration, Oh, there's no hurry about that," Charteris said hastily. Then suddenly he asked, "Do you know if Orion Sector will send a token squadron too?" Alarm rang a bell in Kirk's brain instantly. What was behind the question? Had Charteris heard something that he hadn't? He answered, "Why, no, I don't. But surely you would know." Charteris continued to eye him with that dubious expression as he said, We sent an invitation to Governor Solerimus to take part, of course, but doubtless we'll soon hear from him." Kirk thought swiftly. He has heard something. Something that he doesn't want me to know. But what? Was Orion already moving? Were Orionid forces coming to Earth on the excuse of the celebration, just as he had? He'd get no information from Charteris. He'd better contact Ferdius as quickly as possible. He was only a naval commander, and he felt an enormous desire for definite orders in this crisis. He could only get such orders at the rendezvous Ferdius had told him to go to. Kirk said casually, "While I'm here on Earth, I want to look up my ancestors' old home here, and now would be a good time. It's in a village not too far away, I understand. If we could borrow a ground car—" Charteris seemed glad to comply. "Of course, a sentimental pilgrimage in a way. Very understandable." Kirk refused the offer of a driver, but by the time he and Lillian got out of New York and were rolling northward, he almost regretted that decision. It seemed ridiculous for a man who could pilot a squadron half across the galaxy in full overdrive, but the traffic frightened him. He hadn't done much driving, and certainly none on highways like this big northern boulevard. On this crowded Earth, people apparently still used ground cars in great numbers for short distances, and it was not until they branched off on a subsidiary highway that Kirk felt easy. He said then, "I want to explain about this ancestral home business." Lillian, looking straight ahead, said, "You don't have to explain. It's perfectly natural that you should want to see where your people came from." "Will you stop behaving like a woman and listen?" he said angrily. "My people again. What the devil would I care where my seventh great-grandfather lived? I'm doing what Ferdius ordered." He added, "I wasn't supposed to tell you even that, but I couldn't very well go off on this supposed sentimental pilgrimage without you." Lillian's expression changed. "Then there'll be someone from Ferdius to meet you there secretly, is that it? And I'm not to know about what?" "That's it," he said. "Ferdius' orders were not to tell anyone." He thought that Lillian looked somehow relieved. "I don't mind. I'm worried. I wish I knew, but it's all right if you can't tell me." It came to him that she was relieved to learn he didn't really care about his Earth ancestors, that had only been an excuse. Kirk felt a sharp relief himself to be on his way to Orville, to the old house there where Ferdius' agent would be waiting to tell him what to do. In this gathering crisis he couldn't act blindly. It was vital to get directive information as soon as possible. They turned off the big boulevard onto quiet, tree-lined back roads. These roads were old and rambling, accommodatingly twisting around hills and ponds and even houses. Some of the houses were modern chrome-alloy villas, but there were antique stone houses also, and once he and Lillian both exclaimed when they saw a very old house that was built all of wood. Out here, away from the city, everything looked ancient. Stone fences that had the moss of centuries on them, a steepled church mantled thick with ivy, worn fields that had been tilled for ages. In the fields, driverless automatic tractors were lumbering about their work, but there seemed little bustle or activity. Kirk thought that this was an old, worn world. A brilliant bird flashed across the road, and he and Lillian argued what it was. "A robin, I think," Kirk said doubtfully. "In school, when I was little, we had an old Earth poem about Robin Redbreast. I didn't know then what it was." "Not nearly so splendid as a flame bird," Lillian said. "But the red of it, and the green trees, and the blue sky, it's a pretty world in its way." They rolled finally down a little hill and over a bridge stream into the town of Orville. It was only a village, with shops around a big open square. There was a corroded statue of a soldier at the center of the park, and benches on which old men sat in the sun. Kirk asked directions of a merchant standing in front of his shop, a chubby man who stared open-mouthed at the two visitors. And Kirk suddenly realized how strange indeed they must look in this sleepy little Earth village, he in his blue and silver starman's uniform, his face dark from foreign suns, and Lillian, whose beauty was a breath of the alien. He was glad to drive on out of the village on the designated road. It was an even more rambling road, looping casually along the side of a shallow valley whose neat farms and fields and woods lay silent in the blaze of the soft golden sun. They met no other ground cars, though an occasional air car hummed across the blue sky. Kirk kept counting houses, and when he had counted 5, he turned in at a lane and stopped. The house was of fieldstone, an ancient brown dumpy structure that had a faintly forlorn, deserted look. Under the big, stiff, dark green trees in its front yard, were they the trees called pines? The grass was high and ragged. The lane went on past the house, past an orchard of gnarled trees heavy with green fruit, to a big old barn. There was no one in sight, and no sign that anyone was here. "Are you sure it's the place?" asked Lillian. He nodded, moving toward the porch. "It's the place. Ferdius had his agent here buy it weeks ago, so we'd have this quiet place for contacts. There should be someone here." There was a bell push at the door, but no one answered it. Kirk tried the door. It swung open, and they went in. They went into a room such as they had never seen before. The walls were of painted wood instead of plastic. The furniture was wooden too, and of archaic design. The room, the house, were very silent. "Look at this," said Lillian in tones of surprise. She was touching a chair, and the chair rocked back and forth on its bottom. "I thought it was a child's toy, but it's not made for a child." He shook his head. "Beyond me. And it's beyond me, too, why Ferdius Man isn't here." He called, but there was no answer. He went through all the rooms, and there was no one. Kirk felt a mounting alarm. Had something gone wrong with Ferdius' careful plans? Where was Ferdius' agent? Where was the man who should have met him in this secret rendezvous with the information and orders he must have? Suppose that man didn't come. Who then could give him warning of Solarimo's strike, if Orion did strike? End of Chapter 4.